Welcome back, everybody, to another edition of the Fatboyz Start Sit live on the YouTube channel. Brant, it is week 6 of the NFL season. Once again, this week we are treated to all-day football. We have a game going on right now overseas in London, another game there. We've got the Baltimore Ravens playing the Tennessee Titans in a 3-3 deadlock right now. But it's going to be another good day, Brant. All-day football. Can't get much better than that, right?
That's true. That's true. It is all day football. These London games aren't just as special as they used to be. It used to be, a special time. 2 games in London or overseas a year, spaced out. It used to be a special thing, and now it's just like, it's every single week now. We got to get up, set the lineups early, which is fine. It's just sometimes these games are very unpredictable. So. Last week, prime example, Jacksonville coming out and beating the Bills. First off, want to give a huge big shout out today. It is Bo's birthday. Happy birthday, Bo.
Thank you,
Getting
Brant.
a year older, a year fatter, still loving life, though. So happy birthday, bud.
Appreciate
have
that.
A good one. Hope the Falcons bring you home a win tonight.
Appreciate that. Also, since we're giving shout outs, it wouldn't be possible for Brant to be here doing this if it wasn't for his wife, Rebecca, who happens to be a birthday twin of mine. So happy birthday, Rebecca, as well. The smartest walker I know.
Sure, she'd say thank you, but I think she crawled back into bed. It was a late night at the birthday bonfire last night.
Fair enough. All right, we've got our first question rolling in here already, Brant. Joe says he needs a running back in PPR. He's got Dameon Pierce, Jerome Ford, or Deontay Foreman. Brant, where are you at with this one this week?
Give me Foreman. He's the only piece there in Chicago. I know it's a I don't want to say tougher matchup, but yeah, I like Foreman. He's the only guy there. So I'm going with Foreman, and I am avoiding Ford almost at all costs this week.
Brant, I actually think that the Minnesota-Chicago Bears game is a lot more intriguing now that there's no Justin Jefferson. I think that, kind of levels the playing field for Chicago a little bit. And Deontay Foreman's one of my starts of the week this week. I'm really, really intrigued by him. No Khalil Herbert, obviously, with him going to the IR. And then Roschon Johnson in the concussion protocol this week. So it's just Deontay Foreman and Darrington Evans, who didn't do anything when he had a chance in Tennessee. So I'm pretty excited about Deontay Foreman this week. I was able to get him a couple of times this week. I put in claims for him over DeMacaro there in Arizona, and I'm pretty excited to be plugging Foreman in lineups.
Absolutely.
Jonathan says, I find myself in a Superflex league with Daniel Jones being out. Do we start Tyrod in that slot or roll with a flyer like Jordan Addison instead of a quarterback?
Last week I had this issue actually in one of our leagues. I ended up being the second highest scorer, but I did have a buzzsaw on Thursday night to help me out. I think I roll Addison in this spot. Tyrod's in a tough spot against the Bills defense, who's been coming on. I know they had a little rougher week going overseas last week, but I think I'm going to roll Addison in this spot.
Yeah. I think Addison, which is kind of a tie-in question here with another comment we've got in just a minute here from Tony. I'm going to put this on the screen as well. Tony says, with Jefferson out, is Addison a must start? He is. I'm not taking Addison out of any of my lineups right now. I do think this week KJ Osborne might be the bigger factor here, but Jordan Addison doesn't come out of my lineups, and I think there's a chance that Jordan Addison scores more than Tyrod Taylor. That New York offense has been pretty bad. I'm not sure I wouldn't advocate starting Jordan Addison over Daniel Jones if he was healthy at this point. So, it's Jordan Addison as well for me, Brant.
Absolutely.
Got a question from the big homie, Mike Lowry, just joined. Have you guys talked about Pats versus Raiders yet? There's not much fantasy value there, Mike. There's not a whole lot.
Jacoby Myers.
That's about it, right? Revenge game for Jacoby.
Oh, yeah, revenge. Got to love the revenge. Got to get Jacoby in. As a matter of fact, I'm going to have to tinker with my lineups because I think I have him out in one of them. I'm going to have to get him in there.
All right, there you have it. Jennifer says, morning, I have Barkley. Do I play Breeze this afternoon or wait it out with Barkley? So Brant, you've got Breece Hall against the Philadelphia Eagles defense, or you've got on Sunday Night Football Saquon Barkley versus the Buffalo Bills. It does sound like it's pretty sure that Saquon's going to try to go this week. I would assume, barring any setbacks in pregame, and Saquon with a backup quarterback and Tyrod could equal a lot of dump offs for him. It could be a really big week. Brant, how do you feel about waiting for Saquon?
I absolutely hate starting Brees Hall against the Eagles, so I think I'm going to wait it out and make sure I have a pivot option. Get him in your flex if you can. Try to find yourself a pivot option, whether that be a receiver or anything else. But I think I am going to hold out and wait for Barkley.
Yeah, I think so too. Brees Hall is electric enough that he could spring one against this Philadelphia Eagles defense, Brant. But that defense I just don't feel comfortable starting any running back there. I understand Brees Hall is one of those guys you don't sit unless you have a guy like Saquon Barkley to play over them. So I do think I also wait. Hopefully by 3:00 we have some kind of an idea, what's going on with Saquon, and you may be able to pivot to Brees earlier, Jennifer, rather than having to wait. Chris says, good morning, guys. Want to say thank you for your advice this season. It has helped me get to 4-1. First of all, Chris, we're glad to see that. Glad to see you in those winning ways. He says, at wide receiver 2, do I go with Marquise Hollywood Brown or Mike Evans? Just got in a trade for Kyron Williams at flex. Okay, so we'll start with his wide receiver 2, Brant. Who do you prefer between Hollywood and Evans here?
I actually like Mike Evans this week. I think they're going to be in a shootout game with Detroit. Detroit's secondary has been banged up a little bit, so I think I'm going to go with Mike Evans over Brown this week. The Rams have been decent against receivers. They let up a lot of points to tight ends, but we'll talk about that here in just a couple seconds when we get to the other part of your question. But yeah, I think I'm going to go with Mike Evans.
Yeah, Brant, I'm pretty certain. I'm looking it up right now because I do own him someplace, and I'm pretty certain I remember seeing it flash across on my sleeper app that Marquise was dealing with some injury concerns this week. He's questionable this week. What was does it say what it was?
I'll say the other thing is with that is Detroit's given up almost 30 points per game total to wide receivers. And who's the other one? The Rams, right? The Rams are down here giving up 14 points. Oh, no, sorry, that's running back. 12. Dang it. I'm going to keep skipping over wide receivers maybe this morning. 22 points to the wide receiver spot. So that's another reason I think I'm going to go with Mike Evans.
Yeah, it's Mike Evans. Hollywood Brown was out or limited in practice all week this week with an illness. He is expected to play, but you never know what an illness could be for an NFL, for a wide receiver who's going to need stamina to play a bunch. I'm going to go Mike Evans and just avoid Hollywood this week, even though Hollywood's been being very good. And then at flex, he's got Brees Hall or Saquon Barkley, which I think he is still questionable. So yeah, Saquon is questionable, but Brant and I both agreed previously with Jennifer's question that we're going to hold out for Saquon as long as we can and hope that he plays. That Eagles defense scares both of us. And then lastly, he's got at the tight end Zach Ertz or Logan Thomas, Brant.
I'm going with Zach Ertz. I love his matchup this week. I think he's the beneficiary of playing the Rams. I think he goes off this week. I really like Zach Ertz as the tight end for my tight end choice this week.
So for me, I have obviously watched all these Falcons games at great detail. And if you want to beat the Atlanta Falcons, it's through your tight end. So I do think I go Logan Thomas. He's been pretty exceptional so far this year as well. And I just think he's probably the guy that I want in my lineup if I can have him for the Washington Commanders.
Okay.
Yusuf says, good morning, hoping for a big game from Drake London today, but my question is, who would you give the edge to start between Purdy or CJ Stroud?
The Niners have Cleveland with the backup quarterback. That could be a quick blowout game. And then Houston has, I think Houston's got
New Orleans.
I think I got to go with, actually, I have to go with Purdy on this one. I think New Orleans is going to switch up some coverages and really confuse the rookie quarterback this week. I'm kind of veering away from the Texans now that I remember they got the Saints this week. So yeah, I think I go with Brock Purdy here.
Yeah, so this is a close one for me. Stroud's putting up the numbers with the yardage, whereas Purdy's putting up the numbers efficiently. This Cleveland Niners game just screams a game where you don't have to throw a whole lot of passes. You've got CMC, George Kittle. I mean, I think Purdy will be efficient. I think he has another 2-touchdown performance. So that's a very safe play with Brock. However, CJ Stroud's good enough and he's putting up those numbers. He could go for 303 this week. I think the safer play that's still going to result in decent numbers is Purdy. But if you want to take the top off, it's CJ Stroud. I think Purdy's numbers will be somewhat limited just because I don't see Cleveland's offense putting much pressure on the Niners today. Paul says, morning, guys. I got 2 questions. DFS play, Foreman or Hubbard. He can't afford both of them. So that's the first part, Brant. So in DFS, do you like Deontay Foreman or Chuba Hubbard better?
Actually like Chuba Hubbard better. I think they hand the ball off a lot. I think they try to keep the game close with Miami and try to milk the clock as much as they can and keep it all out of Miami's hands. So I actually like Chuba Hubbard this week.
Yeah, I think Chuba's the better play between him and Miles Sanders this week, just because I do think Miami gets ahead and they're having to play catch up, and Hubbard should be in more on passing work. But I think Deontay Foreman, like I said, he's one of my favorite plays of the week this week, Brant. So I'm putting him in as many places as I can at this point. And then question number 2, he says, is Nico Collins versus Saints or Marquise Hollywood Brown versus the Rams in 1-point PPR scoring?
I'm going Hollywood Brown on this one just because I think the Saints really, like I said, I think they try to confuse the rookie quarterback, and I think it's a rough outing for him this week.
Nico Collins had a bad game last week. I think he does bounce back. But I do think that Cardinals-Rams game could be one of the more high-scoring contests of the week. Give me Hollywood on that one. All right. Colby says, full point PPR flex, Lockett versus Bengals, Tef secondary, or Barkley giving his variables. So what do you think, Brant? You're Tyler Lockett versus the Bengals, or are you going with Saquon?
Well, I'm going to go Saquon here, and this is why this has a lot to do with gut feeling, and there's a lot of gut to be feeling. It's about it's week 6. Seattle's coming off the bye. I really could see this being a JSN breakout game where they want to get him involved with this. They haven't used him a whole lot. Bengals looked good last week, offensive wise, so Seattle may have to play keep up, and I really like JSN this week, so I think Lockett takes a back seat. So I think I'm going to roll out Barkley on this one.
That's interesting, Brant, because I'm really feeling like I'm going to see a DK Metcalf explosion this week. I think you're in for DK's best game of the season. So with that being said, the Fatboyz are split. That means you got to start Tyler Lockett, right? Since neither one of us went with Tyler, he's got to be the guy. No, I think Barkley with Tyrod Taylor is a must start this week as long as he plays. I think the dump offs will be there for him. Obviously that Giants offense has been missing Saquon as well. So yeah, I do go Saquon as long as he plays. Hopefully that's something we get some information out sooner rather than later. Tony says Daniel Jones out, Waller, who actually got something last week, or Ingram. So Evan Ingram, Brant, or Darren Waller?
I'm going with Evan Ingram. Evan Ingram's in my lineup every single week. He's targeted a lot from Trevor Lawrence. You and me talked about this preseason when I was going through one of my drafts that I wasn't huge on Ingram. And you told me just go ahead and take him and ride with it. And I have. He hasn't come out of my lineup, and I think I'm going to ride with Ingram this week.
Yeah, Evan Ingram's been pretty good, whereas Darren Waller's been kind of disappointing this season. However, I think the Indianapolis Colts are pretty good against the tight end. I still have to go Evan Ingram. I can't take him out. I wanted to advocate for him, but I couldn't. And he says, a question 2, with Higgins coming back from a rib injury, play him or Joshua Downs?
Higgins. I think that's going to be one of the higher scoring games this week. I expect it to be back and forth. I know Chase just come off a huge week, but he will be seeing either Wallen or Spoon. So I think Higgins could really benefit from that. So I think I'm going to ride with Higgins this week. I do like Joshua Downs' play, but I have to go with Higgins.
Yeah, Higgins is too good. If he's gonna play, he's gonna be in my lineup. Plus, Joe Burrow's starting to turn it around a little bit here, Brant. So you got to start your Bengals at this point. All right, Mike Lowry says DK Metcalf or DeAndre Hopkins. Yahoo has them about equal on estimated points. Well,
Big Mike, did you sleep in, buddy? Because Hopkins is on the field right now. So hopefully you got DK in there because that's who I'm picking.
Yeah, I would also take DK in this one. And it'd be too late to change it if you haven't done so already. So
good for you to get a sleep in, though, buddy.
TJ said, should I risk playing Saquon tonight or bench him and put Dameon Pierce in to be safe?
I'll take Saquon against that over Pierce.
Yeah.
Hopefully you guys anyone that has Saquon, go out, find yourself, try to get Saquon in your flex, go out, find a receiver, anyone that could be plugged back, and make sure you have a pivot. But I do like Saquon this week if he plays.
We're in agreement on that one again, Brant. Dameon Pierce is not a guy that I've been super high on this year or last year. Again, I admitted a couple of times I was a little late to the party with Dameon Pierce last season. But with the emergence of CJ Stroud, the passing game's getting better. You would think Dameon Pierce would start playing a little better. It just hasn't happened yet. So I'm going Saquon here. Matt says, good morning, guys. With Kyle Pitts having a decent game last week, do I stick with him this week or go with Cole Kmet?
Cole Kmet. Guy doesn't come out of my lineup right now. He seems to be the go-to target. I know last week it looked like it was going to be DJ Moore, but it's still Cole Kmet's the go-to guy for field. So I'm sticking with Kmet.
Yeah, it's Cole Kmet. I'm not taking Cole Kmet out of my lineup either. Yes, Kyle Pitts had a good game, and hopefully we start to see that become a trend. But until it does become a trend, I just don't feel comfortable with it, especially seeing as that was his highest targeted game since 2021. So his rookie season, he hasn't seen that many targets since. So I go with Cole Kmet. The touchdown equity's there, the volumes there, everything leans in Cole Kmet's favor at this point. Austin says full PPR, Nico Collins, Drake London, KJ Osborne for wide receiver 2.
Give me Osborne. Give me Osborne in my lineup. Keep him in my lineup. I think this game becomes a pretty good one. Both defenses struggle. So I like KJ Osborne this week without Jefferson.
Yeah, I think KJ Osborne's also in line for a good line of work this week. Obviously, I want to say Drake London, but that's been so hit or miss this season. I can't advocate for him right now. Got to see some consistency out of that Falcons offense. Nico Collins is obviously the best out of these three at this current point, but they do play a tough matchup again against New Orleans. And Brant, I said it this week on our Wednesday cast. I do think KJ Osborne's the wide receiver to own in Minnesota this week. So I do go with KJ Osborne out of this one. All right. Avano says DeMarcado, Ridley, Osborne, Nico Collins, DK Metcalf, Alexander Madison. Which two do I bench? All right, Brant. Who?
Nico's my first bench. And DeMarcado, I think I have to go as my second bench. I like I said, we're both in agreement with Osborne. Ridley's starting to come back on. I know he had those couple bad weeks. DK should be due for a DK game. Madison's been the guy to own there. I think I have to go with DeMarcado.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be. I'm actually sitting Ridley. Ridley's had some touchdowns that have kind of saved his season this year, but the connection's not as strong with him and Trevor Lawrence as I expected it to be, Brant. So I'm going to sit Calvin Ridley this week. And then I really don't want to sit any of these others here. So I guess just because I don't know what I'm getting out of DeMarcado, I'm going to sit him as well. That could be one that comes back to bite you if you do, but I just can't advocate for sitting any of the rest of these guys at this point. So here's a fun one. Jeff says Joshua Downs or Garrett Wilson. Brant, this is not a question I thought I would have to answer this season, but it's totally fair because the Zach Wilson experience has been great one week, and then the rest of the time it's not been fun for Garrett Wilson owners. How do you feel about Joshua Downs versus Garrett Wilson?
I'm starting Garrett Wilson. Philly gives up points to the wide receivers, so I think Garrett Wilson will be in for a good game. They are missing Jalen Carter, and there was somebody else that was ruled out on that defense. That was a big playmaker, so I think I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson.
Okay. I do also go Garrett Wilson. This is the type of player that I think even with bad quarterback play, he's going to get you, somewhere around at worst 10 points. And I'd sure hate to miss his explosion if I were to bench him. So I do go Garrett Wilson here. I just can't advocate to sit him. John says Foreman or Stevenson in 1 point PPR, Brant.
I'm going with Foreman here. Stevenson's been kind of upsetting lately, so I think I'm going to ride with Foreman there. A few years ago, I was a huge Foreman advocator. So we've seen him have the games. He's the only back there in Chicago. Give me Foreman.
Yeah, I do. It's Foreman for me. Again, Foreman's one of my starts of the week this week. I'm all over him. I'll talk about him a little bit later on as we get into some of our picks of the week, Brant. But I do think Foreman's a guy that against that Minnesota defense, I think he should have a very good day today. Whereas I do think if the Patriots are going to start finding some success here, it's got to start going through Stevenson. Mac Jones hasn't looked as good this year as he did last year. And I think a lot of that's due to the fact that Stevenson's not getting the work that he was last year. It just adds a whole nother wrinkle into that offense. And I think Bill Belichick will get that figured out at some point. I just don't know if it's this week. So I'm going to actually go with Foreman here. And then Johns follows that up by saying thoughts on the other two Miami running backs this week. So we're talking Jeff Wilson and Raheem Mostert. Brant, what do you think about those guys this week?
Wilson's been ruled out, so give me all the Mostert you can. Well, I guess Wilson hasn't been officially ruled out, but he is extremely doubtful to play. Mostert's going to be the guy. I think Ahmed will spill a few touches. But yeah, I think Mostert's a definite must start for me this week.
If I didn't realize Wilson was already ruled out, Brant. So with that being the case, go ahead and put Mostert in. He's been just fine this year. It's been a fun 1-2 punch with him and A-Chain. So go ahead and plug him in without any questions there.
He has been officially downgraded to out now.
Okay.
Wilson has.
Okay. Jennifer said, you said to put Addison in lineups. Do I take out either Waddle or Puka for him? No, you do not. There's exceptions to everything. But no, Addison does not play over those two guys. Those guys have both been very hot this year. Addison's more of a, over a Drake London, over Nico Collins, that, over any wide receiver 2, I'm starting Addison, but not over those guys. Jennifer, you play both Waddle and Puka.
Absolutely.
Logan says, I have Pearson at the flex right now. Do I keep him in, or do I put Josh Downs or Drake London or Joshua Palmer in instead of Damian Pierce, Brant?
I don't want to say it.
Don't.
I think you put Joshua Palmer in. I think I'm going to talk about a Chargers wideout. I think Palmer gets a good touchdown this week. I think you start Joshua Palmer in your flex. I like him this week. I know they're playing a tough defense, but we've seen that secondary start to give up lots of points to the wideouts. So I think I'm going to go with Joshua Palmer.
Yeah. So first of all, going with Joshua Palmer does give you that possibility of a Monday night miracle, right, Brant? So we always enjoy the Monday night miracles when they're possible. So that's definitely something to consider here. But I'm not a Damian Pierce fan. But you play Damian Pierce. He's the safest of the 4 plays here. I don't expect a whole lot for him against the New Orleans Saints this week. But again, he's guaranteed work. We've seen Drake London put up 0. We've seen Joshua Downs and Joshua Palmer have slow games. I can't advocate for sitting Damian Pierce over anybody. If I was going to, I'd have to go with the highest ceiling play, and I think that is Drake London. But I just don't think you can sit Damian Pierce for either of those two. Brant. So, or those three. So I'm going to leave him in at this point. Austin says, thoughts on Breece Hall against the Philadelphia defense? How many carries are you expecting for him, Brant?
Well, they said they're taking off his snap count. We saw it last week, him explode. I expect him to see 15 to 17 touches this week. I expect them to try to keep the ball away from Philly's offense. I don't know if they'll succeed because of how well Philly's defense has been, but I expect Hall to see 15 to 17 touches this week. I could see him getting some work in the pass game as well. So, yeah. I think you're looking at an average day, and by average, it's pretty good day for Breece Hall when he doesn't have a snap count. So I think you're seeing an average day for Breece Hall.
Yeah, I tend to also think that this Eagles defense is good enough that they should slow him down. However, Breece Hall is talented enough that it takes one explosion around the outside, and this guy's secured 10, 15 points for you on a weekend. So it's hard for me to like sit him unless there's just a really juicy matchup. Like we did advocate to sit him versus Saquon Barkley. That one I'm okay with. But obviously, like Breece Hall or Dameon Pierce, I'm starting Breece Hall. He's still a high end RB in my eyes, Brant, and it would just have to be right circumstances for me to sit him because again he's good enough that one play he could make your fantasy day for you. So I also think he'll be somewhere in the 15 to 18 touches. And again, he's explosive enough that it just takes one around the outside where somebody on the defensive end misses an assignment. He's off to the races. So it should be a pretty pedestrian game, but we'll see. I don't have huge expectations for Breece Hall against the Philadelphia defense this week. Jance says, Chris Olave, KJ Osborne, Tyler Lockett, pick one.
I think I go with KJ Osborne. I think I like Osborne this week. I don't think I'm pulling him out of my lineups unless I really have to, and I don't see me having to with those three.
Man, Chris Olave is one of those guys that I just don't want to ever take out of my lineup. Against Houston. KJ Osborne's my one of my start of the week for wide receiver. I can't go against what I'm feeling there. So I'm gonna say KJ Osborne, but man, I think sitting Chris Olave could be one that you really regret. So I go KJ Osborne. But if you could get Olave in your lineup someplace else, gents, I'd consider doing that someplace. Andres says thoughts on Josh Downs the rest of the season, Brant.
If Richardson has the surgery, I absolutely love that receiving core with Gardner Minshew. I think he does give them the upgrade. He's not as mobile as Richardson. So I really, if it's Minshew starting, I do like Joshua Downs as a flex play. In most weeks, most situations, I do think he's rising up the ranking boards right now for fantasy.
So what's interesting with Josh Downs is right now he's currently a wide receiver 4, which is pretty good. That's flex worthy, right, Brant? And he's seen his lowest snap count was last week on his best game of the season. He had 71% of the snaps. So you know he's somebody at this point that I think's probably got to be in lineups. You know, in spots where it's feasible, but I think he's fine all season. Like Brant said, you know, with Minshew, the passing is going to be, I would say, slightly better. You know, and thankfully JT's back, so that's going to take some pressure off of Gardner Minshew as well. So yeah, I think Joshua Downs is a player that at the very least you roster for the rest of the season, just because I think he's going to have plenty of good games. Joe says full point PPR, Deontay Foreman or Brian Robinson Jr., Brant.
I think I go with Robinson Jr. He's been good this year. I think I lean with him. He's the workhorse there. So yeah, I'm going to go with Brian Robinson on this one.
So again, just due to the simple fact that I've been watching the Falcons game so intently, the Falcons typically don't give up a lot of points to the running backs. They're usually pretty quick to stifle the running backs in the running game. So I actually sit Brian Robinson this week. And again, Foreman's one of my starts of the week at running back, so I'm putting him in the lineup again, unless it's guys like Kenneth Walker or a big name player like that I just can't sit. I'm playing Foreman over those fringe guys. So I personally am playing Foreman over Brian Robinson in a couple of leagues this week where I was able to pick up Foreman. So again, I like him this week against the Minnesota Vikings without Justin Jefferson. Chris says, I have to free up space next week to pick up a defense. Do I drop Josh Downs or Jamison Williams, Brant?
I think you dropped Williams. I just don't. I don't see him being involved in that offense as much. Even when he has played, he hasn't been involved. So I actually dropped Jamison Williams.
Yeah, I think it's Jamison Williams as well. He's had the drop issues like Brant just alluded to, and Joshua Downs has been really good this year. So I'm keeping Downs at this point. Williams is one of those guys that he's going to have a big game at some point this season. It's going to happen. He's going to be picked up on a lot of waivers, but I think this could be the case of one of those guys that's just picked up after a big game, doesn't do anything for a few weeks, dropped to the waivers, big game, picked up. I don't see a whole lot for him moving forward. So give me Downs. All right, Brant. Rob says Swift or Addison in PPR.
I'm not benching Swift until he slows down. He's been too red hot. I'm keeping him in my lineup.
So you got the Eagles against the New York Jets. Give me Addison. I think there's a higher ceiling for Addison. Swift is safer. I understand he's had some huge games. But give me Addison in this one just because of the ceiling. Again, it's not as safe as the other one, but Addison's he's got to get in lineups, Brant. I just think this could be too big of a week for him this week. Tony said, I've seen a lot of people saying to sit Goff. What do you think? Goff or Sam Howell?
I like Goff. I'm not sitting Goff. That Detroit offense has been so good this year. Goff's been so good. Howell's been good too. I know the Atlanta secondary is pretty decent with Bates and Terrell there. I'm sure I'm missing other names, but I think I still have to start Goff over Howell.
Yeah. Oh man, Tampa Bay, they're pretty tough against the quarterbacks. Tampa Bay and Atlanta are both kind of top end against the running back this week or against the quarterback. But I do think I like Goff slightly better. Goff's just been too good this year for me to sit. I think I'm gonna roll Goff until I'm given a reason not to. Rob says Breece Hall, Ramondre Stevenson, or Deontay Foreman, Brant. He needs one.
Man, that's tough. I think the higher upside is Foreman, but I think the safest play is Hall. Stevenson's been so disappointing. I'm not putting him in my lineup until I see something turn around. You want a boom play, I think you go Foreman. If you need a safe play that you think you're going to get 15 to 17 touches, I think you go Breece Hall. That's a tough choice. It's kind of where this one is almost based off of what do you need in your lineup? Do I need somebody that could really set me over the edge, or do I need somebody that's just going to keep me right on my prediction or right on the projections?
Yeah, I think your analysis on this one's pretty good, Brant. Hall is the safer play. Foreman's the somewhat safe play still with higher upside, I think, just because of the defense he's playing against. So, again, this is one of those, if you sit Breece Hall, you got to live with him going off potentially on your bench. But I could see Foreman here. Stevenson, again, just like you alluded to, Brant, he's out of my lineup right now. I need to see some stuff out of him moving forward. I think he's like currently an RB3, which is still feels way too high for him because it just feels like he's done nothing this year. So I go Foreman by the slightest of margins, unless I just want safe, 10 guaranteed points, then I go Hall. Austin says Dak Prescott versus the Chargers or Jared Goff against the Buccaneers, Brant.
I expect a bounce back game for Dak. He had a rough outing against San Fran. I like him to start. You get that Monday night chance. So I think I go Dak here. I do. I really think that this is going to be a good week for him.
Yeah, I think you're right, Brant. I go Dak Prescott here. It's Mike McCarthy against Kellen Moore, Justin Herbert, Dak Prescott, two really good offenses. And yeah, the Cowboys got slapped in the face last week by the Niners. I think this is a bounce back as well. Dak Prescott here. All right, Brant. Kevin says Jacoby Myers, Garrett Wilson, or Chris Godwin. Pick one.
Oh man, that's tough. Jacoby's been so good. I think I go Garrett Wilson. I don't. He's the guy there. Philly does give it up in the secondary, so I think I go with Garrett Wilson here.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson feels like the obvious answer for sure. Jacoby's been Jacoby could not play the rest of the season, and I think it'd have to be his best season he's had so far in the NFL. He's Jimmy G's guy, it seems like at this point. And then Chris Godwin's having a pretty good season as well over there in Tampa Bay with Baker. I think I'm going to go with Garrett Wilson still, just because I think the offense has to run through him at this point. But man, this is a lot closer than I feel like it should be here, Brant. Speaking of closer than it should be, Rob says Sam Laporta or Dallas Goedert in PPR at tight end.
Man, I can't advocate to take Laporta out of my lineups. I as of right now, he's a start it and forget it guy. Goddard's been so hit or miss. Yes, I know he blew up last week, but they played one of the worst defenses against the tight ends last week. They do play another another easier defense against the tight end, but I can't advocate to take Sam Laporta out. He's been so safe. I believe he's a top 5 tight end right now. He's one of Goff's favorite targets. So give me Sam Laporta.
He's currently tight end 2 right now, Brant. Okay. But he was questionable. He is good to go, but he's been dealing with a calf issue all week. Goddard's been pretty good as well. I don't know what his current position is. Let's see. He is tight end 8. So these guys are both top 10 tight ends, and Goddard's got no injury designation. Does the calf injury scare you at all, or are you still at Laporta, not even close?
I think it's Laporta, and it's not close. I can't advocate to take him out. I was lucky enough to get him in one of our dynasty leagues, and I refused to even tap on the tight end position until his bye week. He's been so consistent; it doesn't scare me.
Okay. I am in agreement. I like Sam Laporta quite a bit. I do think he's a little higher on the pecking order in Detroit than Goddard is in Philly with Devonta Smith and A.J. Brown. So I do go Sam Laporta as well. He's been a refreshing surprise at the tight end position. And I am absolutely going to toot my own horn, Brant. If you remember right in the offseason when you and I started digging into this tight end position, Sam Laporta was my favorite guy. I didn't draft him enough to prove that, but I did say it on air. It's documented someplace in the histories of the YouTube channels there. So Kevin says Jonnu Smith or pick up Logan Thomas.
I'm going Logan Thomas here now. I don't know what's been going on with your tight ends there. I mean, you got Kyle Pitts, who was supposed to be the unicorn, the best thing coming out, and the Smiths had a great year. But I'm picking up Logan Thomas. He's been one of his favorite targets in the red zone. Give me Logan Thomas.
Yeah, I also think that I'd rather own Logan Thomas here. Jonnu's been really fun, and I do think a lot of that has to do with the fact that defenses aren't going to be worried about him when it's Drake London and Kyle Pitts and Bijan Robinson coming at you. And he's been pretty efficient, minus the one fumble he had 2 weeks ago. But yeah, I just think that Logan Thomas, if you look at what Sam Laporta and then Dalton Schultz last week have done against the Falcons, it tends to lean itself that tight ends are the position to play if you're gonna beat the Falcons. So I like Logan Thomas this week. Sherman says, I got a roster question with Deontay Johnson coming off the IR. Who should I drop for him? KJ Osborne or Josh Palmer?
Rest of roster is Herbert, Geno, running backs are Swift, Pacheco, Aaron Jones, wide receivers Diggs, Lamb, Jacoby, tight ends Ferguson and Waller, Browns and Jags. I think rest of the year, I think I have to drop Josh Palmer. I think I like Deontay Johnson. So yeah, I think it's going to have to be Palmer. KJ Osborne, I think is going to be the beneficiary. Now you come back next week or even after this week's game and really see what is sticking out for the wide receivers there in Minnesota with Jefferson out. That could change, but as of right now, if I have to do it today, I'm dropping Palmer.
Yeah, Brant, I think I tend to agree with you. It's Palmer for me right now. I would assume at some point Quentin Johnston gets going in Los Angeles. I don't know. I just don't buy into the Josh Palmer business this year. Um, but man, I'd almost rather drop that Jags defense. I don't know why I feel that way, but that's kind of where I feel. I don't know if you have to roster two defenses or not, but I don't really want to get rid of any of the skill position players if I can, Sherman. But if you have to get rid of one of them, it's Joshua Palmer. I think KJ Osborne could be too good. Kirk Cousins has been phenomenal this year, and I think he just starts spreading the ball a little more with the absence of Justin Jefferson. So, yeah, I think that's we're in agreement here again, which is scary when the Fatboyz agree, but we're agreeing here. So real quick update on the London game. We did have our first touchdown just a few minutes ago with Zay Flowers. So not a whole lot of fantasy relevancy going on in this game, and outside of really Lamar Jackson and I guess Zay Flowers at this point. Titans numbers are disappointing, like they kind of have been all season. So yeah.
Man, Derrick Henry does not look like Derrick Henry this year.
No, he does not. He's the running lanes have been kind of congested for him, and I think I'd be lying if I didn't say half of that. I feel like it's because Tannehill's been so bad this year as well. But I digress. So
Sherman does say he can drop the Jags after this week. I absolutely am in agreement with that one. Then drop the Jags after this week to pick up or to get Johnson back off waivers or IR.
All right, Brant. So we got a couple minutes before we hit into this Underdog Plays of the Week. What's one game you're really excited to watch this week?
Really, it's the Rams in Arizona. It's a divisional matchup. It's the highest point spread on Sunday. I think I'm excited to watch it. I want to see what the bottom two teams in our division look like. So I'm actually excited to watch that one this afternoon.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one as well, but I can't stop thinking about this Minnesota-Chicago game. I want to see what that Vikings offense looks like in the absence of Justin Jefferson. And hey, let's see if I can be proved wrong again this week on DJ Moore. That Bears offense is starting to click a little bit, which is great for fantasy. Justin Fields is looking good. Cole Kmet's looking good. DJ Moore's that best season of his career. So yeah, it's that should be a really fun game. And both those teams are kind of absent of a defense. The Bears don't have a defense. The Vikings don't have a defense. It's kind of like the offense going out there running plays with nobody on the other side of the ball from them. So it should be a very high scoring game this week, Brant. I'm looking forward to that one a lot.
Okay. Well, let's get into a couple touchdown scorers before we get into the Underdog. I'm going to start with a no touchdown scorer. I know doesn't sound risky at all, but this one is. He's done it in at least 14 straight games. He's done it in every single game since he's been in a San Francisco jersey. I'm going CMC no touchdown this week. That's one of my risky plays this week, but I am going to go with CMC will not find the end zone this week.
Okay.
That's gonna bite me in the butt on the first play of the game. He's gonna rush for like 96 yards and a touchdown.
You know who seems to find the end zone every week, and I think it continues this week, Brant, is David Montgomery of the Detroit Lions. Jahmyr Gibbs is out this week. Not that he's been any kind of a real threat to that offense at all or stealing any work from David Montgomery, but he's just been too efficient in the red zone. And Detroit's finding ways to get the ball in the end zone, and I think it happens for David Montgomery again this week.
Another guy that has found the end zone in quite a few weeks this year, and that's Kenneth Walker. I think will find the end zone again this week. I love coming off the bye week, fresh legs. Offensive line is starting to get back to healthy. So give me Kenneth Walker to find the end zone.
I'm going to say this one just because I simply want to see it myself, Brant. I've got Bijan Robinson finding the end zone again this week. I just want to see the aerial view of him doing something spectacular again. This guy's a human highlight reel, and he's just good for football. I think it's really fun. I think he's really good for the running back position. I think this could be one of those guys who resets the market on running backs, and I love that he's doing it in the black and red. So touchdown for Bijan today.
I have DJ Moore to find the end zone this week. I think he repeats. Well, no, I'm not going to say he repeats what he did last week, but I think he finds the end zone this week again.
I also have a touchdown scorer for the Chicago Bears, Brant, this week, and it's one of the guys that I said I would talk about later. I've talked about him a lot today. Deontay Foreman finds the end zone today.
Okay. Here's my other risky play of the week. San Francisco's defense will score a touchdown this week. You will see a pick six, a strip sack, but their defense will find the end zone this week.
Okay. My last one is also not a risk play on my end. Tyreek Hill finds the end zone against the Carolina Panthers defense this week.
I'm going with some risky business this week.
All right, Brant, let's get into these underdog picks of the week. Again, for those of you who haven't done so already, there's still time. Jump on Underdog, put in promo code HOLIX, double your initial deposit up to $100. Get on there and have some fun. Make some of these boring games that you're not so intrigued by a little bit more interesting. If I happen to be in a market where I had to watch, New England versus Las Vegas, or if my name's Mike Lowry and that's the game I want to watch, by goodness, I better find a way to make it a little more interesting and maybe go to Underdog and put in some player picks and player props, and it gets a little more interesting. So again, promo code HOLIX, double your initial deposit up to $100. Here we go, Brant. All right, Brant, go ahead and take us through your first one here.
My first one is Raheem Mostert going higher than 96.5 rushing plus receiving yards this week. No A-Chain, no Wilson. He's the number one back. The Panthers giving up 128 rushing yards and 28 receiving yards to the backs. Give me Mostert to go higher than 96.5 rush plus receiving yards.
All right. I've got DK Metcalf higher than 4.5 receptions this week. Again, I kind of said it earlier, Brant. Coming out of the bye, I think DK Metcalf has his best game of the season. He's going to have more than 4.5 receptions to do so. So give me DK higher than 4.5 receptions.
Okay. All right. Give me Zach Ertz to go higher than 31.5 receiving yards. I expect them to be playing from behind. It's what I said, one of the highest point totals of the weekend. The Rams give up 66 yards roughly to the tight ends. Ertz higher than 32.5 receiving yards in 13 of the last 20 games. He's averaged 41 yards per game in the last 20 games. So I like Zach Ertz to go over the 31.5 receiving yards.
Okay. I've got Brian Robinson higher than 8.5 receiving yards today, Brant. Again, I don't expect a huge ground total for him this week, but he has been getting involved in the pass game a little bit. I like him to find 8.5 receiving yards someplace today against the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay. All right. We're gonna go with Mr. Consistent, Mr. Moneybags, Mr. I'm gonna catch everything thrown my way. One of your favorite guys, and that's Adam Thielen higher than 6 receptions. Gonna be with the spread that they have in that game, they're gonna be playing from behind, and he's been over or higher than 6 receptions in the last 4 games.
Yeah, that's definitely one after my own heart, Brant. I love Adam Thielen this year, and I think that continues again this week. I've got Jordan Addison, the guy who took Adam Thielen's spot, higher than 54.5 receiving yards this week. Again, I think in the absence of Justin Jefferson, Kirk Cousins really spreads this ball out a lot. I think KJ Osborne, TJ Hawkinson, and Jordan Addison are all must starts. So I like the higher than 54.5 receiving yards for Jordan Addison today.
All right, with my next one, I don't have a whole lot of backup for it. I don't have enough research behind it, but that's Jonathan Taylor, higher than 43.5 rushing yards. I expect them to lift the snap count up a little bit more. I expect him to be the bell cow. You got a backup quarterback in there. I expect them to lean on Taylor in this game, so I expect him to go higher than 43.5 rush yards.
All right, Brent. I've got Deontay Foreman higher than 52.5 rush yards this week again. I'm expecting him to have a huge game this week. I think that Bears Vikings game is a game that the Bears are going to be able to run a little bit more due to the fact that there is no Justin Jefferson, like I alluded to. And I like Deontay Foreman. I think he establishes himself, and I could see a world where he becomes the lead back in Chicago moving forward after today's game. So I like Deontay Foreman higher than 52.5 receiving yards.
Okay. So I've been going risky. I'm going to go with another risky one here. I'm taking Jerome Ford lower than 12 rush attempts. I know 12 doesn't sound like much, but I'm going to take him lower than 12 rush attempts against the San Francisco 49ers. Once again, backup quarterback playing from behind. And he's been lower than 12 rush attempts in the last 2 games. And Kareem Hunt's starting to come on. So I don't expect him to get the ball very much. And he was banged up this week leading up to the game.
Okay, there you have it, Brant. There's the underdog picks of the week. We both had a pretty good week last week. Let's see how that continues this week, Brant. On to something a little bit more important, a little bit more near and dear for both of you and I. We haven't really got to pour ourselves into this as much this year. Let's talk about that menu today, Brant. What do you guys got going on for foods over there today?
So with the wife's birthday, Seattle playing at noon, we are actually going to go out to eat this evening for dinner. We're going to go get some Mexican to take the family out for our normal birthday dinner. But the plus side of it is at 12 o'clock, she will be taking the kids to the Taylor Swift movie, concert, whatever it is. I'm not sure. So I will have this house to myself. I will be making some pizzas. I'm not even sure what I might make a fat boy here, but I'm home alone. Once they leave the house, the oven's coming on, and I'm probably going to make myself a little smorgasbord to watch the Seahawks game.
All right, fair enough. So also similarly here, no Taylor Swift in our plans at this household, but we are having some family come over, get together for a little birthday shindig. One of my favorite nephews, Way Tom Tom, who was in the Chili Fest pageant last week, is coming over this week. We're doing some pretzel bites, some pizza sliders, buffalo chicken dip, chips and dip, meatballs, teeny weenies. Everybody's throwing down this week. And, of course, got to have the birthday sweets in there. So there'll be some cake and some other good stuff this week. I'm definitely going to be wearing stretchy pants today. And I intend to do a lot of screaming, get some cardio and jumping up and down in the chair as my cardiac falcons probably send me into another cardiac attack this week. I'll blame it on the Falcons, not all the food I'm going to consume today, Brant.
Absolutely. Good games this week for our team. Our teams, you guys are going up against Washington at home. We get Cincy after we had a great showing right before our bye week. I'm excited to see what Seattle is going to come out and do. See if Cincy can stay on track. See if Seattle secondary is really as good as they looked last week or 2 weeks ago. It's gonna be an exciting week this week. There are some games that are lopsided. You got the Buffalo of the Giants, with the Giants having a backup quarterback. That's a huge point spread. What's the other one that I saw? Miami and Carolina is a huge one. San Fran and Cleveland's another huge one. So you do have some games that just aren't as exciting as they should be for week 6. But once again, if you want to make them a little more interesting, get yourself on Underdog, use the code HOLICS, and make those games a little more interesting.
All right, Brett. So since we do have a little bit of downtime and you just brought it up, I'm going to ask, what are your expectations for the Cleveland Browns wide receivers and the New York Giants wide receivers with P.J. Walker starting for the Browns and Tyrod Taylor starting for the Giants? How are you feeling there?
The Giants are going to be just as horrible as they have been all year. I know the Bills are starting to get a little banged up on defense coming back from London, but I'm not trusting anything in New York. I really like P.J. Walker when he played for Carolina. I think it was last year he came in, spilled some time. He did all right there in Carolina. So I think Cleveland, I think Cooper should be all right. I think Moore should be okay. They'll be playing from behind, so it'll be rough. But I think those wideouts will be all right there in Cleveland.
Okay, there you have it, Brent. All right, so let's talk about the Sunday night game. We tried to do this a little bit last week too, Brant. just because I feel like the Sunday night games don't get as much love as they should. Are you starting anybody on the New York Giants side of this ball at the game outside of Saquon if he plays, or is it just Saquon?
It's just Saquon for me. I just don't trust anybody else there. I guess in a pinch, in a super flex, if I think maybe you're starting Tyrod, but I honestly would consider other options. We talked about that earlier in the show where we're starting Addison over Tyrod Taylor, but I don't think there's anything outside of Barkley that I'm starting in New York.
Yeah, if I had to, it's Wan'Dale Robinson for me. This guy's had 5, 6, 6 targets the last 3 weeks since he's been back. Definitely not putting up any huge numbers with that, but I do think if I had to start a pass catcher for the New York Giants, it would be Wan'Dale Robinson, just because of him being out of the slot and running most of the slot routes for the Giants. It's about the only thing there, Brant. But yeah, you're right. Even against a banged up Bills defense, the Giants offense is so putrid this year. I don't think any of us expected that. I know you were super high on Darren Waller coming into the season. Had high expectations for him. I was kind of all over Jalen Hyatt, thinking that was going to be something this year. Daniel Jones went out and got the bag in the offseason, and he's just made that front office in New York look silly because there's so many holes and so many issues on that team, Brant. I'm not sure what the New York Giants do to move forward from here, but it's pretty ugly at this point.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely they paid the wrong man, I think. What's your expectations of the highest point spread this week in the Monday night game? What are you expecting? Do you expect a Dallas bounce back? Do you expect the Chargers to come in, or the Chargers to stay at home and walk through Dallas? Do you expect that defense to get back on track? What are your expectations for this Dallas at LA?
Yeah, so I think this is a get-right game for Dallas for sure, but I'm still picking the Chargers to win, Brant. I think this is going to be a high-scoring game, like Vegas has predicted here. It's gonna set the roof on fire. It's going to be constant points. It's going to be a game that you want to watch from start to finish. I just think the difference maker for LA is that they should have Austin Eckler back this week. He's come out and said he wants to be on the field. He expects to be on the field. Herbert's been so good. Keenan Allen's been so good. This Chargers team, they're coming off of a bye week. I know the Dallas Cowboys got embarrassed last week. I think the defense makes some plays, but I just don't think it's enough. I think this is a game where I in our pick'em sheet that we do at work, Brant, I have this game going for 57 points. So I do expect it to be one of those games where there's constant points on the board. I could see it being a 30-27 game. I just think Dallas comes up, short in the end. I think you could see a Dak Prescott interception in crunch time, and that just may simply be the difference here.
Okay. Absolutely. I think I actually took Dallas to win, but I think I took it for 52, 53 points as well in our pick'em sheets. I expect a high scoring game. I do like Dallas to come out on the winning end. I just think that their defense is just a step better than the Chargers, so maybe they'll be able to stop him a little bit. So that's kind of what I'm expecting out of this game.
Okay. So real quick, if you haven't got around to getting your questions entered here before we run out of time, don't hesitate to jump over to the Fantasy Holics Facebook page. There's guys handling the live start sit up until kickoff of the 1:00 game, and then far into the evening slate, the afternoon slate. There'll be people answering questions, and those guys are super intelligent guys over there. So don't hesitate to do that. Also, want to drop a quick plug. Brant, we have started going live on Wednesday night with the host Josh Rodriguez and our co podcaster Patrick Jacquez on or Jack, excuse me. I always butcher that name. The Q throws me off. But anyway, we started going live this week on the YouTube channel. That's Redraft Centric. So if you guys have questions about trades that you're looking at, if you have questions about start sits weekly, what defense to start, something along those lines, jump on Wednesday, go live with us on YouTube. We'd be happy to answer any questions during that live, and it's a lot of fun.
It is. It absolutely is. It's 4 different personalities all running together. We talk about some of our favorite plays of the week. But you alluded to starting defenses. Let me ask you the question that I am struggling with this week, as I have Dallas going against my quarterback in Herbert. So do I take the Dallas defense or do I go on waivers? There is the Falcons, the Rams, the Vikings, the Jags, Houston, Cincy, or the Washington Commanders. Do I ride Dallas's defense against my QB or do I pivot off of it?
You pivot. I don't care who you pivot for. You pivot.
Okay.
Pivot. Yeah. There's Dallas's defense. You can't drop them, Brant. So I hope you have somebody else to pivot to or to drop, but you can't start them against the Chargers this week. They're going to give up some points.
I'm on the Dallas is on bye, so I'm hoping they're able to slide down to the bottom of waivers next week and I can scoop them back up, but I don't really have a whole lot to pivot off of. So I'm going to go risky business. I think I'm going to go with your Falcons here. Actually, I think that hopefully they pull up some interceptions. But
all right, Brant.
That wraps it up for this week. Guys, any other start sits, don't hesitate to get onto the Fantasy Holics. Send us a message, get on the comments. But as always, stay hungry.
Stay fat, my friends.